I was bedridden for quite a while, saw multiple doctors. No one could figure out what was going on with me. They, diagnosed me with a lot of things they thought I had. Some of those, I think a lot of Lyme warriors are put in those categories of, oh, you have fibromyalgia, oh, you have chronic fatigue syndrome, oh, you might have MS, it might be lupus. Like, I had all these markers that were telling them something, but they couldn't figure it out. I actually had a doctor say to me once, your body will always win, so it'll do you well to start listening to it.
Welcome back to another episode of Bioenergetics Beat, the podcast where we explore the intersection of wellness, technology, and bioenergetics. I'm your guest host, Miriam, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by an amazing Lyme warrior, Anne Werdan. Anne has battled chronic Lyme disease, co-infection, mold illness, and countless other chronic illnesses for 30 years. And through that journey, she has learned the importance of learning to listen to her body. Anne's mission is to educate others to listen to what your body is telling you and to understand that what you put onto your body, into your body, and how the air you breathe every day impacts your overall health and well-being. Welcome to the podcast, Anne.
Well, hello, Miriam. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you here. So we're getting ready to celebrate Lyme Awareness Month, which is for the month of May. Here at We Are NIKKI, we like to call it Lyme Recovery Month because, there is hope for people with Lyme. And so in preparation for that, would you like to share a little bit about your Lyme journey with us, Anne?
Sure. Yeah, so my journey has been long, and it has been a journey of a lot of ups and downs over the years. I remember it's actually funny because I just started going back to think about, like, when did this all start? And I actually remember the day I got sick, and um, I was with friends at a music festival, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was sicker than sick. So much so that we were in this small little town. My friend had to drive me to the emergency room, and then was continued to be so now what I know about Lyme disease and tick-borne illness and all the things, I'm sure I got bit there and had a pretty immediate reaction. Ended up having my friend and I were just talking about this the other day. We've been friends our whole life. And she was like, I remember. And I was like, so mad at you because I had to then drive you 4 hours home and I had to miss. But from that day on, I didn't feel good. So, I don't remember at that time having like a bullseye rash. That really catapulted me into, I had to move home as a young 20-something because I was too sick to be out. I was bedridden for quite a while. Saw multiple doctors. No one could figure out what was going on with me. They, diagnosed me with a lot of things they thought I had. Some of those, I think a lot of Lyme warriors are put in those categories of, oh, you have fibromyalgia, oh, you have chronic fatigue syndrome, oh, you might have MS, it might be lupus. Like, I had all these markers that were telling them something, but they couldn't figure it out. So fast forward, I am somebody that I want to do my part. So I don't ever and I'm also not a quick fix person, right? And so I'm like, okay, let's get to the root. This is how I've always been wired. Like, what is really going on here? And I would get chronic infections in my body. I would get chronic sinus infections. I would have, all of a sudden I would become I became allergic to so many things out of nowhere. Ended up being diagnosed with celiac disease. So I would do things for a while and my body would feel good for a little bit of time. And then out of nowhere, I would feel awful again. And so I'd go back to the doctor. And one of the things that really stood out to me as I was on my journey was the importance of learning to listen to my body. I actually had a doctor say to me once, your body will always win, so it'll do you well to start listening to it.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, it's like stuck with me, and it's one of the things I try to help people understand is that if you will listen to your body, it will tell you what it needs. It will tell you what it likes. We are not a one size fits all when it comes to a medical approach, right? And so that same doctor actually looked at me and said, I think you might benefit from homeopathy. So this Western medicine doctor who was like, we can't figure out what's going on with you. By the way, in my 30-year journey, I was tested for Lyme disease 6 times.
Wow.
Those 6 times all
Oh
came back negative until
my gosh.
2017. So imagine all the years. So 2017 was ago. So 22 years of literally feeling like I'm crazy. Now I'm a high achiever, and most doctors would look at me, and I think a lot of Lyme warriors would say the same thing. It's like you have to work, right? Most of us have to work. And
Yes.
actually, even if we didn't have to work, being home by ourselves and being in bed would be the worst thing for us, even though we feel awful.
You know what?
And so,
I agree with you. I'm like, I know we were just talking before we joined how I was furloughed and I was really excited to be off and not working. And then it was a very mental game where you didn't understand how to be off and not be sick. And to the point where like my sister works at a quilt shop and I went and helped at the quilt shop because staying at home is great for a couple days, but then the mental health starts to come in and it's a very hard place to be in, even though working full time is also difficult, but you
yeah,
know, it's
it's a balance.
it is. Yeah,
Yep. Which
absolutely.
is another reason why I say learning to listen to your body is really important because, there were times early on I would push myself over the edge and I'd get super frustrated, like, oh, I can't do what I used to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not crazy. Like I did have some doctors that were like, maybe it's just all in your head, right? Um, and I'm like, okay, or like maybe you're just really depressed. And I'd look at them and say, I actually probably am depressed because of what I'm dealing with. But depression isn't the root of what's going on in my body. So let's figure out what the root is. And so I had to it's a little bit of a dance, I would say, that I learned, like, how far can I push myself without pushing myself over the edge? And then at the same time, on those days where I would have to be in bed, having grace for myself and like not sitting in the victimhood, like I'm not a victim, right? And then learning what are the things I need to do to make sure that I don't just spiral from a mental health perspective. Because that's the one thing I will say. There were a lot of times throughout my journey that I just felt so hopeless because I had spent, I mean, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I know a lot of people out there have as well. And I never got to the root cause. But a lot of doctors, not every, I mean, they would say you front with Lyme disease, but the test would come back negative. Um, and so in the US, what I learned is that the test that insurance covers doesn't detect Lyme disease unless you catch it right away. And
Oh,
so
my
I
goodness.
didn't know that until 2017 when I started seeing a Lyme-literate doctor. And she was also a genetic doctor. And so she said, I'm doing the full panel on you. And when she got my results back, both she and the testing company had never seen so many like co-infections in one person. So it was actually such an affirmation because, when you have a chronic illness, I think sometimes you just think, well, maybe I'm making it up. Like maybe it's, like, is this really the life I'm living? So it was such an affirmation because she was like, you're really sick, actually. And I was like, thank you. What are we gonna do now to heal it? Like, what are we
Yeah.
gonna do? You
But that
know?
must have been so emotional. Like you've done the test for Lyme 6 times. And so you've done the test for 6 times. They keep coming back negative. You're still not getting better. And then all of a sudden you get this test and it's all there. That is a lot. Like, okay, you have the answer, but then also you're like, I am not crazy. Like, that I just even just hearing that, like, it makes me emotional because I know it's hard when you know there's something wrong and you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting, and they keep saying no. They keep saying, "Oh no, it's not that. It's this. It's your hormones. It's this. It's your diet. It's this." And it's like, how is it my diet when I can't eat anything? Like,
Right.
please help me understand. And then you get the test done. The test is saying negative, and then finally, after how many years of being so sick, you got this confirmation. Like, it must have been just a rush of emotions of like, okay, I'm not crazy, but then, oh, now I have to deal with this. Like, how?
Mm.
And once people get confirmation, then it's the challenge of having to treat it and to address it, which is also a battle for a lot of people.
Yeah, so that was for me. So one of the crazy things that so I live in Minnesota, and um we have ticks everywhere in the spring, right? And so since 2017, I became really paranoid even to like step on grass in the spring.
Sure.
Because I'm like, I am not like gonna allow myself any openings. And also, like, every doctor I worked with through over the years, they would say, you do everything we tell you to do and you don't deviate. Because I'm like, when you don't feel good, I'm like, just tell me what to do. If that's gonna make me feel better, I will do that. Um, and so they would always say, like, we just can't figure it out, which is why they kept saying, like, you front with Lyme. So if I had to do it over again, I would have started with the Lyme-literate doctor had I even known. I think it's becoming more well known when people hear about it. But again, I had no evidence of a tick bite, so I didn't even think I had one. Um, but in 2020, I actually got bit by a tick again. So 3 years after, and that tick tested positive for Lyme.
Oh my goodness.
And then fast forward to 2 years ago, I got bit again. And the morning, and it was tested positive for Lyme.
My gosh. How are you
So
not living on like a remote island somewhere?
I know, right? And so 2 years ago so during this whole process, I'm working with my doctor and we're doing different Lyme protocols, right? Every time my body couldn't handle it. I mean, my herxing would be so bad. And we would have to change the protocol. We'd have to look through and she's looking at me genetically as well, which was helpful. But it was like, I still have to work, right? And so we got to a point where, and this is where the NIKKI comes in. So I got to a point where I was like, I'm done. So I'm a Christian. I believe in the God of the Bible. And I just spent time praying. I was like, Lord, you're going to have to give me wisdom and discernment, because I also got to a point where I wouldn't work with just any doctor. I started interviewing practitioners, different doctors, on what is your approach. And they would always say, well, we have to charge you for our time. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not working with you if you're not the right fit for me. And I also don't want to be with a doctor that is going to give me a one size fits all approach, because I'm not a one size fits all. So I decided, okay, I need to just figure out how to get my body strong enough to actually endure another protocol. And so it was last January that I said, I am going to pray and pray and pray. And I'm just going to seek the Lord. I'm going to ask for wisdom. I'm going to take this time to do whatever I can to get stronger in my body so that I can do the next protocol. Fast forward to September, and a woman who is this older godly woman in my church who loves me and prays for me sent me one of your podcasts. And
Oh.
she said, have you heard of medical frequency devices? And I was like, yeah, I have. I already have one. And I almost dismissed it. And then I was like, oh, I better not. It's from Bev. She's older and wiser than me. And I listened to the podcast and I literally was so emotional, because your founder talking how he talked about his daughter, what Lyme people go through. I was like, I feel like he is 100% describing me. And it just affirmed, like, I'm not crazy. Other people go through this, because even a lot of people don't share their herxing and their journeys and like the crazy things that you're like, is this really happening in my body? And so that was where I was like, all right, I am going to buy this device and I am going to have a plan on how I'm going to approach it, because I know I'll herx, I know I'll have side effects. It's just, I know my body super well. So I want to make sure I have space to do it. And for me, I'm telling you, it's been game changing.
Oh, that's so exciting. What I love how you really look at it at all aspects, right? Like, you know, you're not going to feel well. And we do have the customers that they herx and they want to return it. Then you have the people that are like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. This is great because they know it's doing something.
Yep.
I've been here 4 years, and my comfortable limit is because I did herx really, really bad. And I actually had boils from like head to toe. And I'm like, okay, obviously I don't have the ability to have good drainage and good detox. And so then it's like you have to kind of fill up that cup to be able to address like the Lyme program. And what were some of the things like if you did you experience I think you said you experienced some herxing?
Oh yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah.
So day one,
Wow. What were some things that you practice? I know you're very big on listening to your body, and we try to tell that to customers as well as listen to your body. Sometimes people have to restart the program over. It's not going backwards, it's just doing what your body needs. What were some tools or things that you use to help get you through the herks, if anything?
yeah, so for me, I loved that your customer service team kind of sends, here's some things to do. That was very helpful for me. At the time, I was working with Janice, and Janice, what I know she's since retired, but
Oh, I miss her so much.
she was such a lifeline to me because we talked often.
Yeah.
I did the infrared sauna, I did the dry brushing, I did opening my drainage pathways. I'm a very clean eater just because, that's another thing you learn on the Lyme journey. I don't eat processed food. I only eat organic. Like, there's just a lot that you have to do to make sure that your body, like for me, I'm like, I will do my part. I would say for me, the first day when I did it, I couldn't believe that I was herxing. I was like, are you kidding me? It's a minute of Lyme. Like there's no way. And so that was a little bit daunting to me, but I did it purposefully at a time where I knew I had extra bandwidth. So if I needed to rest. The other thing is the first week I was sleeping like 16 hours a day. I was so tired. Um, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I am exhausted. I really was careful to not frequency hop, as some like to call it. I only did the Lyme daily. I really wanted to listen to my body. Um, so it was really up and down. So I had to start over. I got to day 19 once and I had to start over. That was super discouraging for me. And it took about a day and I was just like so frustrated. And then I'm like, you know what? I believe in the God of the Bible and he knew before me that this is where I'd be. And you know what? This isn't wasted. So I was like, I'm going to start again when my body can. So I gave myself a day or two. I started again. And about day 2021, the herxing got so incredibly bad. So a couple things. I had stuff coming out of my skin. It would be
Mhm.
like burning. Um, burning. I was like, did I just get burned by a grill? Like my face would have all these burning things coming out of it. My legs would have tracks burned. I mean, like I would just have these scabs all over my body overnight. I'd wake up and it was like, how did all these little tiny scabs get here? I would tremble and shake. I threw up a lot. I was nauseous every single day. That nausea was one of my biggest things. Um, the tremble and shaking, there were two times, and actually I had a couple very good friends, and I think I have, I mean, over a dozen people I know now that wear the NIKKI. Some who have Lyme, some who don't. And they would come alongside me and they kept saying, maybe you need to just email the customer support and just see if what they say. And I was like, I'm not emailing them anymore because I think they're going to tell me to stop. And I'm not going to stop. Like I'm determined. But there was one night I literally was like, I think tonight might be the night I'm going to die. Like,
Oh my
I
goodness.
think like that's how bad my side effects were. There was one time I almost called 911 because I couldn't get my body to stop shaking from herxing. Um, but uh salt, sea salt was my friend. It helped balance everything for me a little bit when I would get too trembly and shaky. And it would also help my gut a little bit. So once I got to day 30, which was like miraculous, I was like, I made it. I can't believe it. I made it. And it was like, but I felt awful. Like probably the last 5 or 6 days was the worst. It was a Friday that was day 30. So on Monday, I emailed you guys and I was like, okay, now what do I do? Like, and I was thinking I'd get like this big, okay, like you're done. And your customer service was like, you just keep doing it now every day. And I'm like, what?
What?
I was like, no way. What's interesting is that I was kind of mad. I was like, first of all, how did I not ask that question on the front end? And then I was like, it's probably good I didn't because I may not have continued.
Yeah.
And then it was so I gave myself like 2 days. I felt so awful that I felt my body needing it. So
Oh,
it's like,
interesting.
my body actually needs this. So then I started doing the Lyme Daily every day again for 2 hours. And I started to kind of turn the corner about 25 days from there, where then I started feeling like I could add some other frequencies. And that's where things got a little bit game changing for me.
NIKKI plus Lyme is the next generation of Wave 1 technology referred to in this testimonial.
With the Wave device, have you been able to get back to yoga?
I have, yes. Not even just teaching, but like my own practice. That was I remember so clearly. I went to a class last year and I wasn't even able to do like a basic pose because my body was in so much pain. And that's not something I've ever experienced before. I'm sorry, I'm getting like really emotional thinking about this. But it is really hard to have things that like you almost take for granted in your daily life and then suddenly to just completely lose the ability to have those things anymore. So it almost in a way is like there are silver linings to everything, and that is a silver lining, is just like being grateful for so many of the basic things that we often don't even give a second thought to. So long short answer, yes.
NIKKI Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are NIKKI.com.
We had a customer, he's on one of our podcasts. I don't know if you watched it yet with David Butler. He
Yes.
had the same, so his podcast ended up being like 3 hours long. So we really had to condense it. But I remember when I was talking to him, he had a very similar herx to you. And what happened was he had Bartonella in the brain. And the Bartonella left the blood-brain barrier, and now he's able to treat it because it's in his bloodstream now. And he was like, I said to my wife, like, good night, I love you type of thing. And it was like, it is scary. And a lot of people, not necessarily will push through. They will either like restart. Like we have a customer who, it's taken her a year to get up to 5 minutes because it is really, for some people, it can be very hard. We've had people send us
Yeah.
photos of their parasites. It's like, please, no, don't send those photos. Like, we're
I
good.
took
We
photos.
believe you.
I took photos and video, and it was more for myself because I was like, this can't be real. Like, am I just going crazy right now? There's
Yeah.
no way this is real.
Yeah. When I started here, I was raised very Western medicine. And so I remember like my first day, I was like, I knew Nikki and Steven from doing their travel, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And they gave me one of our first devices, which was the Wave One. And, I had this very nonchalant, they're all crackpots, is literally like my thoughts. I'm like, you guys are crazy. I need a job, but whatever.
Yeah.
Thinking I'm going to be here maybe 3 months, right? Like, whatever. And because I couldn't understand how lights could help or lights could do anything. And so I had come off being 5 years, like extremely sick. And they gave me the Wave One. And so I tried it and it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then the third night, I was in Nikki's office because for the first time in 5 years, I slept through the night. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. And at the time, our Wave One had different phases. And so it was basically like just strictly a detox. It was a detox setting, a stress and anxiety setting, and a balance and restore. And then after about 3 weeks, one of my doctors, my specialist calls me and he's like, how come you haven't filled your prescription? And I'm like, what prescription? Like, I totally forgot. And I was on like a very regiment narcotic pain schedule. I didn't realize my pain was easing to the point where I stopped taking pain medicine. And
Wow.
I was really confused. And at the time, the technology was about $2,500. And so I go charging into Nikki's office. I've only been here 3 weeks. I'm like, if you fire me, I don't care. I'm not giving this back. And then that's when I realized, like, it was very eye-opening for me because I had no knowledge about functional diagnostic practitioners, naturopaths, homeo, like no knowledge about any of that. And then I come here and now it's like I have all these different technologies of like, okay, I have our technology, I have different technology. We're growing plants and we're imprinting the water to see what happens and how the different tomatoes taste with different imprinted water. And I was like, my granola, like what is happening? What is happening?
Yes.
But it was, and it's really hard to explain when you're like, it's the wellness programs and they're stacked on the light. And it's like, well, how do lights do anything? And the other day we have a girl, she's been here about 6 months, Bernadine, and it was like sometimes, the important thing that you mentioned earlier is like checking in with your body. And so I'm like, every once in a while, I retry the Lyme program and I'll start back at day one. So the other day, I was showing Bernadine something, put it on, and within like 10 seconds, it was like, boom, migraine. I'm like, oh, not today. I can't deal with that. I'm at work. And she was like, that fast? I'm like, that fast. Like,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I do think like the one thing that I've found with the NIKKI device is that, or the NIKKI wearable, is that now that I can do like a little bit of frequency hopping, I'm noticing different things in my body, right? So, and I'm still running the Lyme Daily almost every day. I actually tried for a few days not running it, and I was like, oh no, my body needs it. But I've heard you guys say this, and then people on your podcast, that all of a sudden one day it's almost like a light switch goes off in your body. That's exactly what happened to me. And it was a little over 40 days ago. And it was so significant. So similar to probably where you live in the spring, the weather is kind of bipolar.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah.
can have a 70-degree day and then the next day it's 35 degrees, right? And that's killer on my body for 30 years. Anything like that, I'll get migraines. I'm in high pain. Full moon kills me.
Oh,
Like absolutely kills me. And so it was a Friday and I overdid it that day because it was 70 degrees. And I kind of was checking in on with my body at the end of the day, like, how are you feeling? And I was like, you overdid it. Okay, tomorrow might be a day in bed. So I was just kind of like preparing myself. And the next day I woke up, I felt amazing. And I was like, what is going on? Like I'm very cautiously optimistic about anything, right? You just learn to be cautious when you have chronic illness. And so I woke up, I felt amazing. I went outside and it was freezing. So I came back in, I was like, what is the temperature? It was 35 degrees. And on top of it, Friday night was a full moon. So I had three things that normally kill me. And the next day, I am feeling amazing. And since that day, every day I have felt great.
that's amazing to hear.
I have a friend I've known for 14 years, and she looked at me the other day and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, I've never in our entire friendship heard you say you feel great once.
Oh, that's beautiful. One of the things with chronic illness is I often tell people I forget who I used to be before I was sick. Like I miss who I used to be before I was sick. And, thinking about your friend and your experience at that festival, like that's a beautiful thing for her to say. And, when chronic illness is such part of your life, it is hard. And, we would take those days where you feel great as, they're a gift, right? Where, it's like, oh my gosh, I did my laundry. I did this. I did this. Oh, and now I'm going to make dinner. Where is all this coming from? But
Right.
that's a very big aha moment for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I really attribute it to the NIKKI. I do.
Yeah.
Like, I do.
Definitely, it's a long term. So there's a lot when we had the wave one, we had one lady, it was like she was like trying it and she was just going like she was committed to it. And at about 9 months, it was the same thing. And everyone has that different date of when that switch kind of flips. And I
Mhm.
think it's important that it's usually not right away because Lyme does take a long time to, unravel. And a lot of people, by the time they realize they have Lyme, they've already had it for so many years.
Yep.
And so then when that switch flips, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, you're at that, like, you're on that other level. And there's these moments too where people are like, it's not working. And there's been a couple events that I've hosted. We have one of our advisors, Dr. Keith Pine, and I was asking him, one of my favorite questions to ask is, has somebody noticed a difference in you before you did? Because, we're focused on ourselves, and some people that are in tune with themselves, like yourself, be like, oh my gosh, like it was the weather, it was this, and it was the full moon, and I felt great. Whereas some people might not notice it. And so when I asked him that question, he was like, he had to think about it. He's like, actually, my brother and I were at a sporting event, and Dr. Pine, his Lyme, like he couldn't turn his head. And his brother asked a question, and Dr. Pine's like, I didn't know if the technology was working. And he turned his head to answer his brother, and his brother was looking at him weird, and he's like, what? And then the brother's like, do you realize you just turned your head to answer the question? And he was like, I just turned my head and was like excited because he was able to move his head. And then also realizing that he was in a stadium when before he couldn't handle the noise or the lights or the
Mhm.
sounds. And so it was like it's these little changes. And I remember once talking with somebody who works with the Lyme support group, and she said, we were talking and we're just like sharing, like, I don't have Lyme disease, have Crohn's disease. And, they're both chronic illnesses, and none of them are easy. And she says to me, she's like, a good question. She's like, I ask myself is like, are you better today than yesterday? Yes or no? Are you better today than you were last week? What about last month? What about last year? What about 4 years ago? And then you can kind of see how your journey has changed, because we do sometimes get in that chronic ill mindset where, I have a hard time with support groups because I find the disease controls the support groups, and I have a hard time with that. That's just me. And so I don't like the disease to have like that control. So when she was like, are you better like this week, though, it's not great. And you look at where you were 5 years ago, and it's like, oh man, I would pray for this 5 years ago. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. Well,
yeah,
and to that point, what I think, like, one of the things, over the years now, I've had, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands of people that I've met that have their own chronic health journey, right? And for me, like, I always tell people I could have never imagined 30 years ago that I would be on a 30-year journey. And so to not get ahead of yourself with tomorrow,
yeah.
right? So the importance of, like, all you have is today. We don't need to worry about tomorrow. And today, what can you be grateful for today? Who can you have in your life that can support you and encourage you? Today, what can you do to honor your own body and honor yourself and what you're going through? And you will be, like, I will say, chronic Lyme disease can lead to hopelessness. I'm somebody who has hope in Jesus, but it doesn't have to be hopeless, right? And so there is a time and a place to reach out and talk to other people. I even had a friend of mine who has Lyme disease who started wearing the NIKKI a couple weeks after me, and we would leave voice memos to each other with our side effects.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting to be encouraged by hearing her say some of the side effects she was having. I was like, that's exactly what I have. So I felt less alone in it, which is partly why I wanted to share some of my story with you guys. Is like, my hope is that there's somebody out there that will be encouraged to know that they're not alone, that there is support, and that there is hope through your chronic Lyme journey.
What I love about your story is you sent me an email. We had been in communication about some other items, and it was a really hard day here in the office. And I was just really not in a good place. I wasn't feeling great. I was not happy. Like I was frustrated with stuff that was happening, like things I was trying to get done, and just nothing was working. And I had this moment of like, oh, why do I keep doing this? And then your email came in, and your email was beautiful, and you were just sharing how amazing your Lyme journey was and your recovery of your Lyme journey. And, you know, Anne, the reason why I want to do this podcast is because your email reminded me why we're here, why we push and push and push. And sometimes, you know what, God gives you another hurdle and you're pushing that hurdle, and then another hurdle comes up and you're pushing that hurdle. And it's just like hurdle after hurdle. We often refer to it here as like we're building the runway of the airplane, but the airplane's already going down the runway. And so it's like we're constantly catching up. And it was a day where I'm pretty sure I had cried more than once because it's just like, you know, it's stress. And your email came in, and that email reminded me this is why we're here, for to hear people's voices. Lyme is a disease that is a horrible disease, but you know, even if one person listening, okay, yeah, do we want to hide all the herxing? But you know what? That's what people are experiencing. They need it's, you know, it's the truth. It's the good, it's the bad, it's the ugly. But then there's also the hope at the end. And, you know, Stephen started this company with a very strong faith in Jesus. And, you know, we need those reminders of why we started. Here's our roots. And we're ultimately here to help people get better from Lyme. And so we forget that when I'm in the middle of like dealing with a million fires and I'm trying to put them out, and then your email came in and it gave me that pause of like, this is why we do this, Miriam. This is why we do these hurdles. This is why we find the solutions. This is why we try to help, is because, you know, we're here to help. And, you know, if anybody like listening to your story, you know, even if one person just hears your story and it really resonates, it's like, that's why we're here. You know what? That's
Yep.
why you are being open and sharing your journey. And it's not easy sharing a chronic illness journey. It's, it's very deep. It's very personal. And I want to thank you for sharing your journey with me, Anne, because I do know that it is not an easy discussion for a lot, because there is a lot of trauma behind everybody's chronic illness journey, and it's not an easy thing. And you know, when you were talking about the grass and the ticks, and I'd be like, oh, I'd be so scared to go outside. Like Janice, who we all miss and adore, she would have like, we had some graphics done up one time by somebody who doesn't have Lyme, and they put the tick logo, an outline of a tick, and anytime that logo would show up in the office, Janice would put a post-it note over it. And so then I was like, why are you doing that? She's like, do you know how scary it is to see a bug that ruined my life?
Yeah.
And, you know, Janice thought she had MS and was getting dementia, and, you know, she had Lyme. And so we had to, it was interesting because if you have somebody trying to do graphics or something and they don't understand chronic illness or Lyme disease, then you get stuff that very, very much like either misses the mark or, you know, will be taken the wrong way by those in the Lyme community, because nobody needs to be reminded that they got bit by a tick. They're living like every day with, you know, being gaslit by the medical community, like just struggling to survive. And it's so hard. And like when you were like, and I got bit and I got bit, and I'm just like, in my brain, I was like, every time you got bit, that is like traumatic. That is more trauma, like that you're adding on. And what a journey, Anne. Like, what a
Yeah,
journey.
but what I'll tell you though, and this is where I remember listening to one of the podcasts your founder talked about believing in the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
And um this is where like I don't think anything is wasted, right? And nothing there's purpose in pain. So I even say to people like even we think about stewarding things well. Pain is something we have to learn to steward well as well.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not just the things we think that are good to steward, but I don't believe that anything came my way without God's knowledge, and
Mhm.
He allowed it. I don't understand why, but I would also say I wouldn't go backwards without it. I wouldn't ask anyone to take it away, because it has actually given me a deeper faith, a greater love for the Lord, and it has strengthened me in ways I didn't know I needed to be strengthened. And it's also caused me to be more dependent on the Lord for His strength, not my own strength. And so I'm actually grateful for it. And there is like, to go to back to your point, the tick, like there is trauma. And one thing that surprised me in the midst of having chronic illness was once I finally got diagnosed, kind of having to unravel some of that trauma, you know, and trying to like get into a space where it's like, no, I'm not going to be defined by this. But then now on the flip side, which I think hopefully will help somebody out there when they have the light bulb go off in their body. I actually have had a little bit of grief. So, which I wasn't surprising. What I wasn't expecting that. And I have been kind of working through like, what is that all about? And it's actually for the first time I've been able to, I'm not just like bracing through life,
Yeah.
right? I actually feel good. And I've been looking back a little bit and I'm like, wow, I have lost a lot due to this. What do I do with the sadness of that and yet have joy in feeling better for the first time in 30 years?
Yeah. And it's hard. I remember I was driving my car about a year ago, and I can't remember what song it was on. I don't remember what song was on. And then this voice just came to me. We both know who the voice was. And it just literally said, Miriam, the worst of it's over.
Mm,
I had to pull over and like cry in my car on the side of the road. And, the emotion and the release that came from that was like 10 years of hospital stays. And like, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to learn. And it's just like, it's the grieving, right? I grieve who I used to be, things I used to do. But like I have this philosophy where it's like I like to say like I have Crohn's disease, but it does not have me, and I refuse to let it have me. And like
amen.
we have these little things at home where I live with my sister, and I need to rest. Like I need to recharge my batteries. Like, you know what? Am I 100%? No, but when I look at where I was, I'm okay with where I'm at right now. And she'll say to me, "Are you in bed because you're resting, or are you in bed because you're depressed?" And it's like, oh no, I'm resting. And it's a lot more resting than depressed. And it's, being gentle with yourself. Like we have our president of the company, she was having her day and she's like, I've hit a wall. And I said, you know what? Sometimes the walls are there to hold us up, and that's okay. Like
Mm,
you can try to be strong tomorrow. Sometimes you do have to give yourself those days where, you know what, you're frustrated and you're angry and like, why did this happen to me? And it's like, you can give yourself the day, but don't let those days turn into weeks and then into
yes.
months and into years. And
Yep.
yeah, so there was days where and it was actually one of my doctors where I was like, I know I need to be strong. And he's like, you can try to be strong tomorrow. Let's be angry today and let's be mad today, but tomorrow I want you to be strong. And it's like, okay. And so then learning to give yourself that day where you're angry and frustrated, but then you try to be better tomorrow. And you know what? Sometimes it's hard and it might take a couple days, but it's getting to that, okay, you know what? I can do this. And
It is good because honestly, people that don't, I marvel sometimes at people where I'm like, you eat crap, you don't take care of yourself, you don't sleep, and you're great. So like, and then I'm like doing all these things, so careful,
yeah,
and it's hard not to like, I had to learn early, like, you can't we can't even compare our pain, right? So like, oftentimes people would say to me, like, I shouldn't even be sharing this with you because you have it way worse. I'm like, here's the deal. What you have going on, you need to honor your body
yeah,
and recognize that you have something going on. It's
yeah,
not the same, and that's okay.
yeah,
But actually, having people that have gone through similar things and being able to be like, oh, you experienced that too, and being understood in that way is also really helpful. And then to your point, like just letting yourself feel what you need to feel, because there is like anger that comes up from it. Like it's frustrating. There is sadness, there is grief, like all those things. Pretending it's not there isn't going to help you.
no. And it's important to like so one of the hardest things I had is, you know, like Lyme and Crohn's disease, you don't see it. And so you're also dealing with the stigma of your friends not understanding. I don't have the energy to go out, and I was in the hospital once, and I was supposed to do something. I'm in the hospital and I text a friend and they're literally like, you need to get over your imaginary illness. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And then you lose it's interesting because you lose friends that
Yeah.
you think they would be there for you. Illness
Mhm.
happens and they kind of like peter off. And then all of a sudden you have these beautiful friendships that maybe you weren't super close to, but they're the ones that are meant to be in your life because all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork and they're like, how can I help you today? Like my sister and I, we live about 45 minutes from the hospital, and a friend that I hadn't talked to in a long time, she's like, Miriam, I hear you're sick. Do you guys need to stay at my place so you're only 5 minutes from the hospital? And you're just like, haven't talked to you in 3 years, like you beautiful soul. And so like
Wow.
going through those journeys is really hard because you do get alienated from your friends like that don't understand that I can go to work, but I gotta go home and go to bed. That's you know what, I have bills to pay. I don't have time to go for dinner. I don't have time to do
Right.
anything else. I don't have the energy. And then you're trying to protect the little energy that you have to function. And so then you get these like beautiful friendships that you thought you may not have had, of people that have kind of been in your orbit, but then all of a sudden they are the people that I think are meant to be in your life. Because the hard part too is letting go of, I know for me, I had to end a 30-year friendship because I was like, why am I friends with this person? Because I'm like, you all of a sudden value the people that are in your circle more because, your energy is limited, that you want to spend it with people where they're adding, not taking away from your energy, and, sucking
Right.
all the good out. So,
Well, and also to that point too, like the friend I had, I mean, I did lose quite a few friends during my journey, friends I never thought I'd lose as friends. But then also learning, like with chronic illness, your own boundaries with people.
yeah.
So I had to learn to be really boundaried. Like there were some friends I had that it was almost like they wanted to help me, but then I had to take care of them in the midst of them helping me because they couldn't handle seeing me in so much pain. And I'm like, I can't take care of you and me. So we either have to have a better boundary system. And like, I don't need you to do it, but I don't want to be alone all the time either. So like, really honor, like, again, like, I think what I go back to is like, if you learn to listen to your body tells you what it needs, and that you want to, like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to let people into the pain and the circle, right? And to honor yourself in that too. Like, when I first got sick, felt like I had to continue to show up for people in the midst of me being sick. And it was like exhausting. It made it worse. And just being okay with receiving love and care from people, like that was a huge, as an independent woman who's a high achiever, that was really hard to do. And I probably didn't even start learning how to do it until maybe 10 years ago. But that's a whole nother thing too. Like it's okay to let others care for you.
Absolutely. So we're just going to wrap it up here, Anne. Do you want to share your website with our audience?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I have my own consulting business called Olivate. It's www.awelevate.com.
Perfect. And for anybody listening to the podcast and inspired by Anne's journey, you can actually use Anne's affiliate code on checkout to save 10%. And your code, you want to share your code with everybody?
Yes, it is AWELEVATE.
Awesome. And also visit wearenikki.com to enter to win your own Nikki Wellness technology along with the Wellness Suite, valued at $598 USD. If anyone has any questions, you know how to reach our customer service team. And I want to thank Anne for sharing your journey with us today. And if there's anything you want to leave people listening with today.
Yeah, so for anyone out there who is struggling with chronic Lyme disease, I'd love to have you reach out to me directly. If I can offer you support or encouragement or even pray for you, I'd love to do that. And just want to remind people you're not alone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anne.
The very first day that I wore the device, I slept through the night, which is amazing.
It looks like a little watch, but it's actually a frequency device. It's bioenergetic, so it has this little frequency light situation that goes into your arm, and it pretty much makes an immediate difference.
So there's like a sleep mode. When I go mountain biking, I throw it on energy booster. Once I'm done mountain biking, I actually switch it to the other mode they have is pain and relief.
When I'm in a stressful situation and I put it on, it helps me almost immediately. I immediately feel calmer, whether that's a frequency or me knowing that it's working or knowing that it's helping in addition to that.
one of my buddies was like, "Do not discount this. This is an amazing device. You've got to give it a chance."
It's got so many options. I'm just going to go over, it's like a menu that you can choose. It's so easy to use. You just click on what you like. For example, it's got travel, pain relief, energy boost, allergies.
I really, really love this device. In fact, I have 2 of them because when one is charging, I want to wear the other because I'm never without it.
It will never give you something where your body doesn't need and it is not natural. That's what I love about the device.
Put it on focus, maybe halfway through the day as I was losing focus. And within about 10 minutes of turning on, I feel like my brain is just like, I'm connected. Like, wow.
Trying all the frequencies and I love it. The one I'm using right now out on my walk is energy. It just energizes me. And I'm finding that I've got more stamina and more energy than I thought I would.
My NIKKI helps me sleep better at night and helps me feel less stressed.
I really been enjoying it. So I've noticed my energy's been up. I've been sleeping better.
So the NIKKI is one price, and then you pay for the frequency sets separately. So you can get the wellness one, which is awesome. I really do love the new Lyme frequencies so much. It's incredible.
NIKKI Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are NIKKI.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Freemedica. Freemedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.